6. And today we have another new guest on the show, Mr. Kyle Wallace. He's the state manager for Drake's Title and also a fully licensed attorney here in the state of Nevada. And he's going to come on the show to talk about what's happening in Nevada here specifically with the moratorium on the rentals. And we're going to talk about what the Supreme Court did as well for the country. But before we get to Kyle, Ruth, what is happening in Las Vegas?
I'm going to say, put you all down in the lobby in case anybody wonders why you're going away. Going to hide you and hide Kyle, and then hide Kyle and put that up and go here. Okay, so these are the stats as of this morning for through yesterday. We have 21 days of inventory, and it's going down a little bit. It was down to 21.5. It's hanging in there, but with all the closings that we're going to have, it's going to be interesting to see what happens September 1st. But we had 83 homes that were listed yesterday. Now, only 27 of those homes were under 400,000, and the rest of them were over 400,000. We put 54 under contract, and we closed 139 homes yesterday. Our average daily closings for this month is 133. I suspect that number is going to tick up probably to around 140, similar to what our average is for the year, which is about 142, 143. We have 2,764 single-family homes available. 470 of those are actually $1 million plus homes, which this year have been really flying off the shelf. We're doing 4.5 a day in sales compared to last year, which was less than 2 per day. So that is really changing. The investors. So what's happening is investors are really buying homes this year, 44 a day actually. So of the 139 closings yesterday, 44 of them were non-owner occupied investors. And of course, you know, we need rental properties. So let's just look here at what's going on with our rents. Put myself back down here. So our rental market has accelerated, and because so many newcomers are coming from pricier cities and they're seeking more space during the pandemic. And that's a shift in our market that's helped to fuel the sales and the lack of inventory. But I do want to address the lack of inventory quickly. You know, there is churning going on, meaning we're selling homes, we're listing homes, we're selling homes, we're listing homes. So what's happening is there's new listings coming available every day, and then they're getting sold. So that keeps our inventory low, but it's not bad because we keep getting new inventory. So I don't want anybody panicking about the 21 days of inventory. So the typical rental rate in Las Vegas has soared 23% since last year. So in July, it went up to 1,662 compared with a 9% jump nationally to 1,843. And that was cited from Zillow. So the rents are climbing here at the second fastest rate in the nation. In January, our rents were up almost 7% from a year earlier, and now they're up 23%. So that tells you a little bit about how attractive Las Vegas is, because people want to move here, and they are moving here. And that's why so many investors are buying so many homes, because they see a great opportunity when you do the cash flow and the return on investment with our increased rents. They're making money and they see a promise for the future. So that's a good thing. We're going to talk today about the evictions and what's going on with them. You know that, let's see, come on, work with me here. It's not working. Come on. I love it when it works, doesn't work. It's not scooching for me. Okay, that's all right. I think my computer went black right before we went online. So, but people, we're going to talk about the evictions, and we have Kyle Wallace here. So we're going to bring Kyle in and bring Max in, and here we go. So welcome, Kyle. now I lost Max. Oh, here he comes. He's coming
Hey,
back.
we're coming right now. We're coming right now.
Good morning, Ruth.
Hi, good morning. I'm nervous today because my computer's acting so
She's
strange.
rattled today.
I am. I don't like it when technology turns me on.
So Ruth, hold your horses here before
Okay.
we get into Kyle and all that stuff. A couple things. I wanted to ask you, inventory's gone down, right? Because weren't we at 26, 27 days of inventory about a month ago? And now you're saying that 25. Okay, so now we're coming back down to 21. So there's some inventory coming off the shelf and more more closings happening, but no new inventory coming.
But I do have a solution or an explanation for that. Oh, where did he go? You have to come back on, Kyle. I don't know what happened to you. My explanation is for that. It's summertime in August.
Okay.
Schools, vacations. I think you're going to see more listings because we were doing at least 100 plus listings per day. And now in August, that's gone down. I don't think we've had too many days where it's been over 100. In fact, one day this week, we only had 38 new listings. So yeah, there's Kyle. He's coming back. There we go. Come on, Kyle. All right, I am going to put this baby down. I don't know if that's causing an issue or not. There he is. Hi.
There we go.
Yeah. So I think I think probably after Labor Day, we're going to get back to listing 100 homes a day. So I think we'll get back to maybe 25 days of inventory, but homes are selling and closing, within a month. So,
Get it.
But it's a healthy market.
Yeah. So it's a late summer swoon, as you're saying.
Yeah.
Got it. So, and secondly, Kyle, before we get into the subject matter, we always like to get to know our guests just a little bit better here. So my first question always on New Glass is, are you a local here, born and raised native of Las Vegas, or are you a transplant like, probably 50% of everybody here in Las Vegas?
I'm a transplant. I was born in Taiwan.
Oh, wow.
My dad's from Scotland. I lived all over the world. So,
okay. And how long you been in?
Las Vegas is the longest place I've ever lived in one spot. So,
okay. So how long you been here?
About 14 years.
14 years. Okay.
Yep.
Let's see. I've been here 17. So yeah, I got 3 years on you. Almost local now. Well, fantastic. So we brought you on the show today just to talk about, the bill, the SP284 bill here in Las Vegas, or in the state of Nevada, and also to discuss what's happening nationwide with the Supreme Court ruling with a eviction moratorium as well. So tell us, just start out, let's talk about what is SP284, that bill, and let's start there first. Okay.
Yeah. It's one of the more interesting bills that they passed right in the last session, because it is statewide. We're calling it an eviction moratorium, but it's not. It's a restrictions on when you're going to be able to evict in Nevada, right?
Okay.
So it's a pretty lengthy bill with some rules on when you can, when you can't,
right,
when you can get some money from the state, things like that.
Okay. Do you have like some bullet points that, from a real estate perspective, especially landlords and new investors need to be kind of aware of what this bill does and kind of the changes?
Absolutely. I would say, for investors and for landlords, some of the pitfalls are, if you are in a eviction process and someone applies for state assistance, you can't move forward on that eviction process for, until a hearing is had, which is by rule 30 days, like no longer than 30 days, right? So that's point number one, which is you have to kind of put everything on pause until they have this hearing. Then number two is, if you accept any money because they've been, approved for some program, then you can't evict for 90 days after you've accepted money, right? So if you accept some money from the state, and they immediately stop paying, then you still have 3 months before you can do anything again. And then the third point is that many times when the state gives you money in this process, because you have renters who aren't paying, who have applied for this program, you have to accept that money as full payment for all arrearages due, right? So you can't pursue someone for the money afterwards if you accept those funds.
Oh, wow. So, I mean, my next question as a landlord and a rental owner is how much are they giving you? Are they covering, I mean, the amount that the state's giving you covering the arrears?
So it's interesting because I've talked to a few people who have been in this program and applied for it. And I've heard one of two things, which is they gave them very little money or they gave them more than they were even owed. Right? It's anytime you have a bureaucratic organization taking care of, payment on money, you're going to get some wild results.
Oh, crazy.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're rolling the dice here. I guess that's part of being in Las Vegas, I guess, in the state of Nevada. You're
absolutely
right. You're rolling the dice.
One of the things that you kind of have fear with is that, someone goes into this program, they give you, a month's worth of payment or a couple months worth of payment, even though you're owed, let's say, a year or 9 months or something, because we've had the moratorium in place for so long. And you have to accept that as full payment for the arrearages, and they don't pay anything again. You're now, you've had 30 days for the hearing. You've had 90 days now until you can start the process, for eviction again. You're now 4 months again without a payment.
Right.
And, presumably they could apply for this program again, right? You could go 5 months or, there's no definite answer to how long this thing can go on for, right? So from an investor perspective, it starts to get a little bit, you start to get a little bit nervous about having, tenants in there who are not going to pay or who have a history of not paying. But, there are some interesting ways around that I think that they didn't discuss in the bill itself.
Okay. Before we get that, I want to touch on that, but I have a follow-up question to this. Do you have to accept the money?
You do not have to accept the money.
Okay. So if you don't, instead of what I'm hearing you right is if you don't accept the money as the landlord, then you can go through the regular process of the eviction process. So it's the 30-day. I'd be surprised if they can get them into 30 days right now. But let's say they do get them in at the 30-day, some type of hearing, then you can continue to the eviction process if you don't accept the money. Is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Yes, but there's a big caveat there.
Okay.
Right. The caveat is that if a court determines that you refuse to participate, so not, if you're not accepting the money, you could refuse to accept it because it's too little,
right?
Or there's some other factors. But if you just refuse to participate with them in the program itself, a court by law now with this bill can prevent you from ever evicting the tenant, right, until their lease expires. So you can't in bad faith just say, I'm not going to participate.
Okay, got it. So, I mean, if it's a reasonable amount and they're offering you, anywhere between 70, 80, 90, 100% of the arrears, whatever, to catch them up, and then you refuse, and then they can force this other stuff on you. But if they say, for instance, they owe, 8 months of arrears and the program's offering you a month, worth of the monies to cover that, and if you refuse, then it's not the same thing. You're acting.
You're probably going to be okay. That's right.
Okay, got it. So you had mentioned ways around this bill. What ways are you talking about?
So one thing I would say is this bill prevents you from evicting a person. To evict a person, they have to have a legal right to be there, right? So they have to have a valid lease agreement. Meaning, if you have a holdover tenant, right, and they go, in the state of Nevada, we say, if the lease is expired, they're now on a month-to-month lease, and you give them notice that you're not renewing the lease for 30 days and they stay anyways, they become an illegal holdover tenant, they don't have a legal right to be there anymore. So you can still get them out.
Got it.
That's the positive part of this is, that if they're, once they lose that legal right, you can take action on it.
Right. So it sounds like you're the time period that you're most liable and most in danger of this bill is during the lease period.
That's right.
Pretty much. And so once the lease ends, and if they're a month and you're telling them you're not renewing the lease, then you have some recourse here.
That's correct.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, that's good to know.
Kyle, how long, let's say my lease is up December 31st. How long does my landlord have to give me a notice that they're not going to renew? It used to be 30 days. Has that changed?
That has not changed, but also it depends on the lease agreement itself, right? So the default in law is 30 days. Once if up December 31st and you're giving notice on November 30th, right? You're going to be at December 31st. It's no longer valid. You don't have to wait for that thing to go to a month-to-month lease, right? Some lease agreements call for 60 days notice. There have been some, landlords who just wanted to make this more difficult for people to exit. So they had increased that number to 60 or 90 days, which you can do, based on the lease agreement. But now in Nevada, that may not be beneficial.
Right.
Right. Exactly right. Okay.
So and Max, and Kyle, I looked up, the number of foreclosures that were on the MLS, and there was some discrepancy because I looked it up two different ways. One way it said there was 1,100. The other way it said there were 2,100. But when you think of how many homeowners there are in Las Vegas, I didn't think that was such a big number. 2,100 foreclosures, and half of them were investors.
It's certainly not a big number.
No.
Right. Not considering, for 12 months, 13 months, 14 months, we've allowed people to not make mortgage payments.
Right.
That number's pretty low.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of equity right now, right, Ruth? I mean,
yes.
Right.
So if you bought a home in December, you've got 18% increase in your home value. So yeah, that's the other thing that we don't think, the forbearance. So when that ends, and it ends, it's ending for people now, even it doesn't seem to be affecting people because they know that they have $40,000, $50,000, $60,000 worth of equity. And that's just if they bought last year at a median price of $345. Now their home is worth $405,000 median. So yeah, it's not wise to sell a home or go into foreclosure. Why would you do that?
Right. At worst case scenario, you break even. If you bought 6 months ago. I mean, that is what's happening here in Las Vegas here. So what are some other nuances here that we, as landlords and investors that they need to be aware about this bill here, other than that change with the state program?
I think those are the major points of it, right? I think that if you're a landlord and you're looking to lease a property to someone, what happens is as you start having tenants, apply for this stuff. If you don't have like top-notch tenants, you probably want to go with a shorter lease period, right?
Like
rather
6
than
months or
6 months as opposed to 12 months.
That's a great tip. That's a great tip.
That is a good idea. So how is this over? The Supreme Court this week overruled, the president's and the administration's extension of the eviction moratorium here. What was that ruling, and how's that affect each state?
If I can interject, Max, what they did, the CDC, is put a ban on the CDC's eviction stay because they said the CDC is not a legislative, entity. So they don't really have that right. And if they give them the right to allow people to stay in their homes, they could do many other things. They could open a whole can of worms for other what would you call it, authority that the CDC would have, which we didn't vote for them, right?
No, correct me if I'm wrong. Isn't the process though? I mean, the CDC put out that order, but the president signed an executive order to do that, right? I mean, so it still technically came from the president as an executive order, but I'm not. It's been a long time since I studied civics. Yeah,
but Alabama and Georgia, I think, Kyle, correct me if I'm wrong, aren't they the two states that got this banned, this CDC policy banned?
So they were the ones that challenged it, right? What's really interesting about this ban itself on evictions is that the original moratorium was brought up to the Supreme Court, and they had they had a ruling on it and said essentially that this is not something that can be done by executive power. It has to be done by the legislative branch. But they didn't throw it out the first time because they said there has to be we can have an emergency order. We have to have a adequate time period for the legislative branch to address it. So once the first moratorium expired, And the president said, we see this CDC guideline and we're going to follow it. We're going to put this in executive order. We're going to, continue this eviction moratorium. It got to the Supreme Court pretty quickly, right? And that's what's kind of interesting about this, because normally to hear something, the Supreme Court takes months and months and months, sometimes years. Right. So this was just a couple of months where the state said, this has already been heard. There's already been guidance given to the president where, he was told that we have to, address this at the legislative level, and he just did it anyways. And so, to have this thing heard within just, a couple of months is pretty, shocking and impressive, if you will.
Yeah, absolutely. I thought we were going to be in December by the time we hear a ruling, given the initial announcement. Okay. So how's this rolling over into states? I mean, states still, like with this SP 284 bill, they can still issue out their own directives and their own laws regarding the eviction process, right? I mean, and don't necessarily have to follow the federal or the executive order.
That's right. And so again, if it's a legislative issue and it's not an executive issue, then any state or even the federal government could legislate it and put something in place. I think go ahead.
Well, I'm just going to add, I know that if someone had applied for assistance based on that CDC letter, that people say, oh, I have a CDC letter, you can't evict me. Well, the court has thrown that out here. They're not, if you're not in the system, if you didn't apply previously for assistance as of, I think it was July 31st, they're not, you can get evicted. Now, where does that all play into this?
So interestingly enough, right, they were given, what was it, $56 billion to give out on this stuff by the executive order, and about $4 billion of it was used. So, not much. A lot of people had letters, but once that gets thrown out, that letter is, as good as a fire starter. That's all it is. So you'd have to start the process over again and apply at the state level to have any protection, right? But interestingly enough, if you're a landlord and you were waiting on this process, and you hear today, okay, that federal moratorium is no longer valid, I'm going to move forward with an eviction process, and they run down and apply for the state. Now we're in the waiting period again, right?
So I have a question. I mean, from a lobbyist perspective, right? I mean, I don't know if you know this answer here, Kyle, but it's interesting to me because, all the major corporations and the big industries have their, super PACs and their lobbyists that put out deals to protect themselves, right? And who's lobbying for the landowners right now, or the landlords right now in this legislative process?
So, it's interesting because I think at the federal level, the reason that the legislative branch didn't pass anything is because the landlords do have a pretty strong lobby. They do have some money, right? So it's just easier to do by executive order to say, hey, our constituents love this and we want this, but the money behind it is saying, we don't want this in place, so federally, I don't know that, it's going to be real easy to pass a bill. There's just too much money that flows in from, the landlords, people with a lot of money. At a state level, that's a different story, right? It's going to depend on state to state. They don't necessarily put quite as much money in at the state level. The vast majority of states do not have something like we have that prevents this, from happening.
Yeah, because I'm thinking, during the financial crisis, all the big banks got bailed out here. I think it's time for the banks to return the favor to the landlords here, the mortgage holders, during this period of time, right? I mean, they're recording record profits right now.
Yes.
Right, yeah. Record profits, more cash in the bank, literally physical cash in the bank, where they're refusing to take cash anymore. So, I mean, it just surprises me, and to think that why isn't this, kind of all these bills and the executive orders that are happening out at that level, why aren't they protecting the landlords? Because eventually the landlords provide right now the available houses for people to even rent. And so, I mean, these bills need to make sure it's fair for all parties that are being affected by this, not just the renter necessarily, because there's a person that owns that house that has a mortgage, right? And
well, it was interesting too, right? On the stats that Ruth gave, it was 44 out of, what was it, 139 or something, 129 on the closings that we had were investors.
Right.
You know, so you start to think, if we make it, you know, non-beneficial to own a investment property and they want to start to sell it, you know, and they start dumping properties on our market, how does that affect us? Right. And that could be true across the country, not just here. And I think the one thing that everyone wants to avoid is what we had happen in 2007, 2008 all over again, right? We just don't want to flood the market with inventory. We don't want to affect the prices. We don't want banks to, you know, do a whole bunch of foreclosures and start dumping them on the market. And so, you know, the more that they put this kind of stuff in place, the more we say, you know, it may or may not be worthwhile. You know, we have to see the results of it, of course. And again, like I said, to reiterate, if you're a landlord and you may be pushing 6-month leases now, that may be the standard for you, right? Because you just don't want to take the risk. And when you find a good tenant, then maybe you'll renew for a year lease. But you know, it could be a little bit more difficult to be a investor in Nevada upcoming, right? We just don't want that to happen across the country.
Right. Now, maybe the good news though, right now with low interest rates, there's so much money sitting on the sidelines from everywhere. The big institutions are flush with cash right now, and the hedge funds are looking. If we see a massive dump of inventory, I can tell you there's going to be people, you know, and institutions trying to pick it up. So we're not going to experience. See, everybody's waiting for this big crash in real estate right now. It is not happening.
And I'm not projecting that there's going to be a big crash. I'm just saying we want to avoid, you know, legislation that would make that happen.
Oh, sure.
Right.
Sure.
That's
Absolutely.
the one thing that could shift the market for us. Right. I think the market's incredibly strong. I think that it's, you know, still a great time to buy or sell, or, you know, but what we don't want, and we've seen this, you know, in history, is that the federal government or state governments putting things in place that just affect that market in a very negative way.
Yeah. So we'll see how this pans out. But Ruth, I mean, I have a question for you. I mean, you run a property management company here in Las Vegas, and what are you seeing from the, you know, tenant side here as far as like late payments and, you know, evictions? I mean, do you have any stats on the amount of homes that you manage?
We manage 400, and we probably have out of that 10 people who, you know, we have payment arrangements with. We had to evict 2 people in July. I say evict, and the judge allowed us to evict them because it wasn't. First of all, they weren't paying rent, but they were also destroying the property. And so the judge was very good. And the whoops, what is that? Can you hear that?
Yeah, it is like a vibration of some sort. So, I mean, according to your numbers here, I mean, you're talking about what, less than 2% that are late on their payments, and 2 out of 400 plus, you know, less than 0.5%. From an eviction standpoint.
And we got into the court right away. There wasn't like, you know, a big waiting for it. And the tenant did appeal. The tenant did appeal the judge's decision. And we went and did some investigative work and found out that what she had said to the judge, which was on a Zoom meeting that was recorded, she had lied. And so then we went back and we showed the judge, look, you know, this person wasn't telling the truth. And so she's out of there. Thank goodness. And she did such damage to that house. Unbelievable.
So, you know, interestingly enough, and you bring up a good point, which is, you know, I failed to mention this in the bill itself, you know, statewide, you can still evict even if they're in the program, if they, you know, have it caused a nuisance to the property, right? And so when we're talking about nuisance, what's interesting is we'll say, you know, nuisance can be caused by many things. It can be caused by, you know, a bad sound, a bad odor coming from the property, or what we call waste, which is they're destroying the property, right? So if you can prove that they're a nuisance because they're causing this irreparable damage to your property, and it doesn't even, you know, irreparable is the wrong word.
Just any type of damage that
Yes.
would cost
Well,
something to repair.
the leases are pretty clear as to what the landlord's responsibilities are when it comes to maintaining the property. And it's extremely clear about what the tenant has to do to maintain the property. And also, we had another tenant, and there were cars coming in all times of the day and night. They were selling drugs. We got rid of them too.
Yep.
Well, good. It's nice to know that justice does prevail here.
It does, yes, it does.
So there is a process still.
Yeah.
So as I was talking, as we were talking here, this is now the time, more importantly, to hire a seasoned property management company to take over this. Because, as a landlord, last thing I want to do is know all the ins and outs of SP284, right? And have to go through this process myself. So, I mean, any of your thoughts on any of this stuff here, Kyle, from your perspective?
Yeah, I would say, one of the interesting things, because I see a comment, someone saying, hey, I had photos for 92 evictions. And I think that this doesn't prevent you from evicting a person, right? Mm-hmm. If they don't apply for the program, it's business as normal.
Business as usual. Okay.
As since we're in the real estate business, we know about this. We're on the front end of it. The back end of this is the consumer, right? And that information gets out slower to the consumers. But I'm going to tell you right now, they'll start having advertisements and they'll start having billboards and other things that will affect this. But, we're kind of in this interesting window right now where the experts know about it, but not everyone else.
I just wanted to make a comment. It might be a little bit out of context what you're saying, but one of the reasons why we don't have that many people not paying rent, because there's no place to go. Yeah. It's not like, they're going to get a cheaper rent somewhere else. We put a property on the market for rent, and you're an example, Max. Your property was rented before we even put it on the MLS, right? Because we know we have a backlog of people who are looking to rent homes. And it's just amazing to me, or not amazing to me, that we don't have more evictions, because where are they going to go? There's no place to go. And if they have this record of not paying rent, one of the first things a good property manager does is check the last landlord's, rent history. So I think we're pretty safe here, and we've got more renters coming in. So I just think we have a pretty good situation in Las Vegas.
Yeah, absolutely. So, any of this affect title at all from a title perspective here, Kyle?
So not from eviction perspective, right? Unless there's some pending lawsuit, of course, and then someone's filed as tenants on a property. But that's a little bit more difficult to do as a tenant, But foreclosures can, of course, affect title.
Sure.
Depending on what kind of notice they've been giving and other things. But we're just not seeing a lot of those either.
Fantastic. Well, that's good. I'm glad you clarified that. So if it looks like if the tenant's not applying for any of the assistance that's offered by the state, then it's normal eviction process here in the state of Nevada, which is pretty landlord friendly, yes. Comparatively to like the state of California, where I heard like you can stay in a property for like 12 months and not evict someone. So that's good. I mean, that's good. I mean, I agree with you, Ruth. I mean, we have a unique situation here in Las Vegas where we're finally getting the benefit, right? The financial crisis like wrecked this town from a real estate perspective, but created a whole bunch of opportunity, though. I mean,
and it created equity. I mean, homes, if you bought a home 10, 12 years ago,
right?
I mean, you have a ton
you made
100%,
pretty much.
Yes.
I looked at my very first house I bought in 2011, coming out of the financial crisis, for $152,000, a 2,400 square foot home in the north side of town. And the same model, another house sold for $410,000 just recently. So, I mean, that's 100% gain in, almost a decade here.
Yeah, if you look at my when I do my stats, I go back from 2011 up to today, and I show the equity gain. If you bought a medium priced house in 2011, it was $120,000, and now it's $405,000. So that's a lot of equity people have.
Yeah, a ton of equity. Well, Kyle, any last words? We appreciate you coming on. Love to plug Driggs Title for you as well. So, I mean, tell us a little bit about, the differences here from using Driggs versus maybe some of the other title and escrow companies here in town.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to give a plug. Driggs Title is certainly unique. First of all, being that, title companies or escrow companies have a lot of people who have, been there for a long time, but very few of them have escrow attorneys, if you will. So people who close, who are attorneys, and we have a couple at Driggs Title, right? Which is nice. So there's just a little bit more expertise when things or issues come up. One of the other things that I would say too is we're not a big national company. We're local, regional company, meaning that some of our underwriting guidelines have a little bit more flexibility. Right now, we also love the easy deals to close too, right? Everyone likes those, but when you get into a situation that's just a little bit more difficult, we have expertise to help out on that.
That's actually pretty important because every once in a while you're going to come encounter in real estate. Everybody who's been in real estate, mortgages for more than 4 or 5 years understands the pain that like a little nuance on something that pops up that you weren't aware of, how that can delay or kill a deal. And so having expertise like attorneys, that's great. I mean, actually, that's a good point. Having real attorneys who know how to read and understand real estate law can be, very helpful.
So if someone wants to talk about vesting, if they want to, talk about tax consequences, if they want to, have help filling out these forms, there's like escrow people can't do that. Real estate people can't do that, right? The advice is always talk to your accountant or talk to your attorney.
Correct.
You can sit there and actually help someone out with that stuff, which is nice.
Oh, fantastic. Fantastic. Yeah. Well, Ruth.
I've got Lonnie's information here, her phone number, and she was going to be on today, but she had another appointment, so she couldn't quite make it. I know she's listening, though. She said, good morning, everybody, so that's great. And here, Lonnie has something else to say. Would love to meet with you. Any agents or lenders, give me a call as Kyle, and I would love to meet with you. Yes. And Lonnie is one of the sponsors of our classes that we give. I'm going to put you down here, Lonnie, for a second. Let me hide you there. And Monday we have a contracts class coming up, and it's brand new. Jimmy Degg and I wrote this class and got it approved by the division, and it's for 3 CE credits, and it's on Monday, and it's from 2 to 5, and that includes a happy hour. So go to bee.vegas and sign up for the class. And every month now we have a risk reduction class. So that is a new requirement to continue with your licensing. And every month we will have a risk reduction class along with agency, ethics, law, and general. We have Be the CEO of Your Life. We have just a great compendium of classes for everybody, and we love everybody's loyalty to us, and I want to thank everybody, and I'm grateful for you, Max, grateful for Kyle, grateful for all the friends that join us all the time, and we really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Kyle, appreciate you coming on today. A lot of good information. Yes. I'm glad. As a landlord, I thank you personally. It helps me understand some of these rules and laws here that I get to be aware of it. But I know Ruth and her team's going to take care of it all for me. So, but I appreciate you coming on. And any last words? Having me. Yeah, you got it. Any last words before we go?
I just want to say hi to Annetta. Thank you, Lonnie. I'll see you Monday, I guess. She's going to sponsor our class. That's fantastic. Just everybody have a wonderful weekend, and looking forward to some cooler weather. But I'm not complaining. Nobody listens anyway, right?
Exactly right. Well, have a good week, everybody. Yeah, and join Ruth on Monday at 9 a.m. for her show.
Yes, that's right. I forgot. I'm a busy person.
Yes, you are.